For a while now, I've been wanting to try a new composting method to help improve the soil quality in the garden. I want to set up a small container for vermicomposting. This type of composting is about using earthworms, and I like the idea since it sounds sort of analogous to raising chickens. The composting container is like the chicken coop. The earthworms are the chickens, and the worm castings and resulting composted material would be what is harvested, or the chicken eggs in this analogy. A lot of times, vermicomposting is done in a self-contained stack of containers, but I want to try the in-ground version of this type of composting. So the worm coop will be buried in the garden, and these worms will be free range to move around and improve the soil quality throughout the garden bed. A food-grade plastic container is more commonly used for this sort of thing, but I'm making this one out of a 10-inch terracotta pot. I soaked this pot for about 6 hours in some water, and I'm now drilling 1/2-inch holes around the outside of the pot. Theoretically, the worms will come and go from this container through these holes. One major potential downside of using an unglazed terracotta pot is that since it does absorb water, it might crack in the winter. But since I have such mild winters here in Zone 8A, I'm hoping that I could just get away with keeping it covered on freezing nights. But we'll have to put that to the test this winter. The top rim of the container needs to be above ground, and I'm drilling 1/4-inch holes around the top for airflow into the pot. I know typically people purchase a special type of European earthworm that is known to eat things super quickly, but for this, I decided to just recruit some native earthworms for this project. I know there are some worms already in the garden, and they might find this container on their own, but I'll add whatever ones I find around the yard. It's been hot and dry lately, so I only found 5 worms to start. Time to set up the worm coop. To continue the fun chicken analogy, the worms like kitchen scraps and need a bedding material. Since we don't use chemicals on the lawn, I'm using dried grass clippings as the bedding. At first, I add a little bit of water into the pot, but a few hours later, I realized that I made my first mistake. A colony of ants had, of course, just found the kitchen scraps, and I realized that I needed to keep everything more damp inside the container to make it better for the worms and also to deter the ants. When I planted these purple petra basils, I was determined to make purple pesto with it someday. I make a small batch, and I admit it does not look as purple as I hoped. The problem is likely that the leaves are turning a little green from being too shaded, or maybe it has a nutrient deficiency. Lately, I've been seeing a few hummingbirds zooming around the house, and I would love to see them linger more in the garden. In my previous vlog, I took some cuttings from our blueberry bushes. At the time of filming, these have been in the soil for about 2.5 weeks. I was surprised to see that there were so many new leaves growing so soon. I checked for roots on a couple, but they were barely visible. So I'll leave these in the propagation dome for at least a couple more months. There is a less successful plant update for the stringy stone crop that I planted a couple months ago here as ground cover in front of this gate. I put a little pine straw down and our dogs decided to make this into a favorite morning time sitting spot. I was worried that they might be damaging the plant, so I ended up removing the pine straw. This was ultimately a mistake though, since the dogs soon decided to turn this into a favorite digging spot instead. I repotted what was left of the stone crop, and I think I'll just add back the pine straw and let this spot be a dog bed instead of a plant bed.